how long do you think it takes to double your money? Most people guess somewhere between 15 and 20 years. Some say even longer. And honestly, that answer reveals something important. We've been conditioned to think wealth building is this painfully slow crawl, like watching paint dry, except the paint is your retirement account and you're checking it every morning hoping something moved. It didn't. But consider this: the timeline isn't fixed. It's not some natural law carved into stone. The time it takes to double your money depends entirely on variables you control. At 3% annual returns, yes, you're looking at 24 years to double. That's not wealth building. That's waiting. But at 12%, 6 years? At 15%, under 5. The same amount of money, the same starting point, completely different timelines. The difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 50 isn't luck. It's understanding how these numbers actually work. And it starts with one formula that takes 3 seconds to calculate. A formula you probably learned once, then immediately forgot. Let's make sure you remember it this time. Chapter 1. The rule everyone forgets. It's called the Rule of 72. And it's embarrassingly simple. Take 72, divide it by your annual return rate, and you get the number of years to double your money. 72 divided by 6% equals 12 years. 72 divided by 8% equals 9 years. 72 divided by 12% equals 6 years. That's it. That's the entire formula. Now here's why this matters more than any complicated investment strategy you'll ever hear. This rule works in reverse too. If you want to double your money in a specific time frame, divide 72 by that number of years. Want to double in 8 years? You need 9% returns. Want to double in 5 years? You need about 14.4%. Suddenly, you can work backwards from your goals. We spend countless hours researching which streaming service to cancel, but somehow never spend 3 seconds on this calculation. The Rule of 72 isn't just math. It's your financial reality check. It tells you exactly whether your current approach will get you where you want to go or leave you waiting decades longer than necessary. Let's see what else it shows us. Chapter 2. The Math of More. This is where most people's intuition completely fails them. At 6% returns, your money doubles in 12 years. At 12%, it doubles in 6 years. So far, so obvious. Double the rate, half the time. But watch what happens at 8%. That's only 2 percentage points higher than 6%. Barely noticeable on paper. But your doubling time drops from 12 years to 9 years. You just bought yourself 3 extra years with a tiny improvement. Now follow this through. Over a 30-year investing career at 6%, your money doubles about 2.5 times. At 8%, it doubles 3.3 times. At 10%, it doubles 4.1 times. Each additional doubling multiplies everything that came before it. 1 extra doubling means twice as much money at the end. 2 extra doublings means 4 times as much. This is why settling for good enough returns cost so much. You're not losing a few percentage points. You're losing entire doublings. The difference between 3% and 10% over 50 years, your money doubles 3 times versus 7 times. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between $100,000 becoming $800,000 versus becoming $12.8 million. Every percentage point buys back years of your life. Chapter 3. The 4 levers. So, what actually determines your doubling time? There are exactly 4 variables. 4 levers you can pull. Most people obsess over one and completely ignore the others. First, your principal. How much you're starting with. Obviously, doubling $100,000 gets you further than doubling $1,000. Second, your rate of return, the percentage growth. This is what everyone fixates on. Third, time in the market. How long your money compounds. This is what everyone underestimates. Fourth, and this is the one people forget. Contribution frequency. How often you add more, whether you're feeding the machine monthly, quarterly, or just once. You have direct control over 3 of these 4 levers. You can increase what you contribute. You can extend your timeline. You can add money more frequently. The only lever that's partially out of your control is returns. Yet that's the one everyone spends all their energy trying to maximize. We chase returns while ignoring the variables we actually control. What if we flipped that approach? Chapter 4. The Rate Reality Check. Let's talk about what different return rates actually feel like in real life. A high-yield savings account doubles your money in about 15 years. That sounds safe, patient, responsible even. But here's what that actually means. If you start at 30, your money doubles once by 45, doubles again by 60. That's it. 2 doublings across your entire career. Now compare that to the stock market's historical average. Your money doubles roughly every 7 years. Start at 30 and you've doubled by 37, again by 44, again by 51, again by 58. 4 doublings instead of 2, that's not twice as much money, that's 4 times as much money. Same starting amount, same time period. Wildly different outcome, just because of where you parked it. Now, someone always asks about chasing higher returns. 20% annually, 30%. And yes, those numbers exist, but they come attached to stomach-churning drops, 50% crashes, sleepless nights. The goal isn't the fastest possible return, it's the fastest return you can stick with through the bad years without panic selling. Speed means nothing if you bail halfway through. Chapter 5. The Hidden Thief. Now for the part that tends to get ignored, your actual timeline isn't just about what you earn. It's about what's being taken from your earnings. Inflation runs around 3% historically, sometimes higher. That means your 5% savings account, in real terms adjusted for purchasing power, it's growing at maybe 2%. 72 divided by 2 equals 36 years to double your actual purchasing power. That safe choice just tripled your timeline. And that's before fees. The average mutual fund charges around 1% annually. Doesn't sound like much until you realize that 1% compounding against you for 30 years consumes roughly 25% of your potential returns. 1/4 of your wealth. Gone to fees. Your bank sends cheerful notifications celebrating your annual interest. Meanwhile, inflation silently ate more than you earned. It's like getting excited about finding $1 while someone picks a 20 from your other pocket. The solution isn't complicated. Low-cost index funds, tax-advantaged accounts, returns that actually outpace inflation. Stop celebrating standing still. Appreciate you sticking around. If you liked what you heard, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your take. And if you know someone who'd enjoy this, share it with them. Chapter 6. The Contribution Secret. This insight changed how I think about wealth building entirely. When you're starting out with smaller amounts, your contribution rate matters more than your return rate. Let that settle for a moment. If you have $10,000 invested and earn a phenomenal 15% return, you made $1,500. If you have $10,000 and earn a decent 8%, but contribute an additional $500 per month, you added $6,000 in contributions alone, plus $800 in returns. You're ahead by nearly $5,000. The math completely flips once you hit larger numbers. This is why the first $100,000 feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Your contributions dominate. Progress feels slow. But once you cross that threshold, compound interest starts pulling more weight than your deposits. The boulder reaches the downhill slope. So if you're early in your journey, stop obsessing over whether you picked the absolute perfect fund. Focus your energy on increasing what you put in. Negotiate that raise. Start that side project. Cut the expense that doesn't actually make you happier. Feed the machine first. Optimize later. Chapter 7. The Psychology Problem. Let's address the elephant in the room. You can know all the math perfectly and still sabotage your own timeline. We all do it. It's called loss aversion. The psychological reality that losing $100 feels roughly twice as painful as gaining $100 feels good. This is why we check our accounts obsessively during down markets and ignore them during rallies. The market drops 20% and we panic sell. We lock in losses. We sit in cash waiting for the right time to re-enter. We miss the recovery. And we just added years to our doubling timeline. The average investor earns 2 to 3% less than the funds they're invested in, simply because of poorly timed buying and selling decisions. That's not a market problem. That's a human problem. The cure isn't more willpower. Willpower fails. The cure is removing the decision entirely, setting up systems that invest regardless of how you feel that morning. You don't defeat psychology with discipline. You defeat it with automation. Chapter 8. The Automation Advantage. This is where everything clicks into place. The fastest path to doubling your money isn't about finding some secret investment. It's about removing every possible obstacle between you and consistent action. Automatic contributions every paycheck. Before you see the money. Before you can decide to spend it. Before emotion gets a vote. Automatic rebalancing. So you don't have to think about whether to sell winners and buy losers. The system handles what your brain resists. Automatic dividend reinvestment. Those payments buy more shares immediately, compounding without requiring you to lift a finger. You remove yourself from the equation, not because you're the problem exactly, but because you're human, and humans are magnificently terrible at this specific thing. The most successful long-term investors share one trait. They made the decision once and then made it nearly impossible to unmake without significant friction. Automation is not laziness. It's acknowledging that future you will have bad days, read scary headlines, and be tempted to do something stupid. Protect future you from present you. Chapter 9. The First Move. So where do you actually start? First, calculate your current reality. Take 72, divide by your actual return rate. That's your doubling time right now. Now ask yourself if that timeline works for your goals. Second, identify your biggest lever. If you're early with smaller amounts, focus on contributions. If you've accumulated significant assets, focus on returns. If you're doing both adequately, eliminate fees and tax drag. Third, automate before you're ready. Set up that automatic transfer today, not next week, not when things settle down. Today. Because here's the final point about doubling your money. The timeline isn't primarily a function of market returns. It's a function of decisions. Decisions about how much to contribute, about where to place it, about what to ignore, about making the choice once and letting compounding do the rest. The shortest time to double your money? It's shorter than you think. If you start now, if you automate, if you let the math work for you instead of against you. Your timeline starts when you decide it does.